Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Successful with Schizophrenia. I'm your host, Hayali, and this is our 26th episode. All right, so what is on today's agenda? Today, we're going to be talking about forever learning. Okay, so when I talk about learning and education, what typically pops into people's minds would be college. And I did go to college, I did get my bachelor's in education, and I understand that college is not for everyone. However, it was a good decision for myself. In college, I learned things about teamwork. Believe it or not, I used to work very poorly in teams. I was always the one that felt like everyone was slacking off. I took all the direction, and it was basically my project, and I put everyone else's name on it. That's typically how I viewed teamwork assignments. But when I went to college, that's my doggy. When I went to college, I actually had to learn how to work well with others, which honestly did take 4 or 5 years to learn. So I'm glad that I learned that. Another thing that I learned was conflict resolution. So I mentioned that I wasn't so great with teamwork, but I actually noticed in my job the way I communicate with people is a lot more smooth. And I did take a couple classes on conflict resolution and leadership and um, basically like how to work well in groups. So I took a lot of courses like that. And I'm so glad that I did because there's been a few instances that popped up at my new job and I had to smooth things over. And I haven't typically been able to smooth things over so easily, but I actually was able to do it. And I felt pretty proud of myself. So that goes hand in hand with the communication skills and presentation skills. If you are watching me on YouTube, you already know I am presenting this with a screen and little pop ups, and you get to see the animations. But if you're listening to the podcast, right, then you would not see the visuals. I encourage you to check out the YouTube and also our website. But if you just want to stay on podcast, I totally understand. But ultimately, I did learn presentation skills when I was at college. Even though I was an online student, I did have to record videos and present and do multiple projects like building websites. So I had a little bit of knowledge going into this, and I was very thankful for that. Another thing that I learned from college was educational skills. So I learned how to teach more effectively and engage students or engage my audience in a way that other people may not have been so interactive. Maybe it's more so like a lecture. But I like to be more engaging. Rather than a lecture, I like to pretend like I'm actually talking to you. Even though you probably can't hear I can't hear your responses, right? I'm still talking to you. So I encourage you guys to reach out to us, right, at successfulwithschizophrenia.com. We would love to hear from you. And next thing about education would be career. So some people go into technical skills, and some people like me go into administrative roles. All right. So one thing that I can say thank you to schizophrenia for would be that I'm rather articulate as I stumble on my words. But that's what a lot of people have said about me. You know, I'm very clear to the point, very direct, easy to understand, and they appreciate that about the way I speak and about the way I teach. And a few people have complimented me on that, so I throw it in there. I think the big difference in between people who are considered articulate versus not would be the emotional investment. That's just my opinion. That's just what I've noticed that people who are emotionally invested in something, they're probably not communicating very clearly. Again, that's just my thought process. But another thing that I learned through my career was professionalism, how to send emails, how to send letters, how to speak to another person when things are going south or things are being misunderstood, right? Administrative skills, like, for example, presentations, email marketing. I'm learning all that. I wouldn't say I'm a great salesperson yet. That's key word. I'm learning. I'm learning. So I'm learning a bit about marketing, email marketing, how to pose on pose myself on LinkedIn, and as you've probably seen, the Instagram, the YouTube, the podcast, right? So I'm trying my best here. I'm new at it, but hopefully you grow along with me, right? I would love to have listeners for years and years and having you guys go to workshops. Ultimately, that is a goal that I have in mind for you guys to go to workshops. But it about that for now. That's like on a back burner activity. You guys don't know too much about that or what it looks like. I'm going to keep it a secret for now. But the long term learning that everyone can do that I really encourage would be self development. Okay, it took me a long time before I felt like I needed to work on myself. In fact, I didn't feel like I needed to work on myself until about 2 years ago. Maybe three. All right. And I've came a long way since then, but it all started with self-awareness. I realized that rather than pointing my fingers, right, um, it wasn't getting me very far. And my dad once told me if you point your finger at someone else, three point back at you, right? So that's just something to keep in mind. So rather than putting the blame on others, I put the blame on myself to, take a good hard look in the mirror and say, do I like what I see? Am I comfortable with who I am? And if I answered no to that, then I felt like I needed to do some changes. And ultimately, I did do those changes. And guess what? I'm still doing those changes today. But if you just don't know where to start, that's totally understand. I totally understand. You can start with consumption with the purpose. So, for example, rather than scrolling through Instagram all day, right? I know it can be very tempting. You can read a book about self improvement, articles online about how to cope with schizophrenia or how to cope in general, or things to boost your mental health or positivity, YouTube videos that are knowledgeable, right? Not talking about the silly cat videos, although those are entertaining. I'm really talking about feeding the mind, feeding the soul, so that you guys can really get a grasp of learning is a journey. There's not an end. Even though I graduated, guess what I did? I invested in a few more courses recently because I felt the need to learn more. Okay. So, learning is a never ending journey. It's just like life, keep on learning continuously. And I just really want to acknowledge that you are learning. If you're listening to this podcast or you're watching this video, I am proud of you for taking this step because it can be hard to work on self improvement. But if you've made it to this episode and if it's intrigued you at all, give yourself a round of applause. You have earned it. Okay. So, of course, podcasts and then coaches would be a great way for self development. Right now, I have three different coaches or three different programs that I'm in, and they have like different leaders that are essentially coaches. So, I felt like I could benefit from that. And believe me, I will tell you all about it just slowly but surely, episode by episode. One thing came up this morning on one of the podcasts I was listening to. Very, very interesting concept. I don't know if I'm going to share it yet. I want to try it out for myself before I share it for you. But just know that some exciting things are coming soon. And that is it for this week's podcast. If you have not already, check us out on successfulwithschizophrenia.com, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Instagram, you name it, we're on there. All right, Successful with Schizophrenia. That's it for me today, and I'll catch you next week. Bye.